weakening of the shilling. There are several strategies that President William Ruto is currently looking at. However, on the international front, the International Monetary Fund has warned the Central Bank of Kenya against propping up the local currency and saying that they want the Kenyan shilling to continue depreciating. And this is for Kenya to adjust to a new reality. According to IMF, and as I've said there in the earlier figures, the Kenyan shilling has already hit a new low, a record history low of 134 shillings against the dollar. However, IMF wants us to continue letting the shilling to depreciate, and this is going to focus towards encouraging local production as Kenyans are now switching to locally produced goods. Remember, the weakening of the shilling is affecting how we are importing goods, given that we have to do that in dollars, and that dollar is not favorable to us currently. As that happens, we're going to, of course, see whether the CBK is issuing a statement towards allowing that to happen, and of course, how the country can adjust to such, such measures from international lenders. These top external lenders, I was having a look at this morning, most of Kenya's foreign loans are owed to multilateral institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, and Africa Development Bank. This is influencing how the government is putting up strategies, implementing policies that are going to turn around the economy. As that happens, China, on the other hand, is adopting more cautious approach to lending in Africa, including Kenya, where some nations have now reached their limit of borrowing capacity, and of course the prospects of defaulting are now looming. Kenya's debt to China from June 2019 to December of 2022 is here, and I have the figures. It stands at $7 billion, the country's debt to China since 2019 to 2022. And of course, that borrowing capacity, or that limit of borrowing, has already affected the country. And we are seeing here several strategies, including the president looking towards the West and, of course, relying on small scale or relying on cheap loans. We're going to also have a look at some of those loans and see whether the government will be able to tame this situation. Top of business, if you take a look at the Business Daily on the front of the pages there, Ruto and Biden's team are opening a trade talks, and this is amid smallholder farmers in Kenya who've now put up a protest against these negotiations, which are proposing that there be a bilateral deal between Kenya and the United States, and this will replace the more than 2-decade-old African Growth and Opportunity Act, which has been there for quite some time and has cushioned farmers against the rising cost of prices in the international market. On the other hand, an estimated 137 online bookmakers, these are digital lenders who are now digital lenders plus betting firms who are now required to upload or to integrate their system within the mobile platform by Safaricom, that is M-Pesa, and this is going to ensure that KRA is collecting taxes on real time. As people are betting, KRA will be collecting taxes from these betting firms on real time as it happens through the M-Pesa platform. We're going to see whether there's going to be some reactions from the betting firms as well, and how that is going to affect the taxation issue, which has been there, of course, a discussion over in Parliament to tame the betting menace in the Republic. This and much more of the development in business is what we're looking at here, on Biashara Tuesday. So engage me on the SMS platforms. You'll see the numbers somewhere here on your screen. Tag me on all social media platforms at Richard_OKENYE. I'll be able to see that feedback and then relate back to you as we discuss all the way to the end of the show. I have guests who are coming through as always on the show, so tune in for that. I'll be giving you the information in a bit, but for now, I'm looking at the roads courtesy of Ma3 route to see the developments are like, current traffic and transport conditions in Nairobi and its environment. So you can tell me if that's happening, if you're in Nakuru, if you are in Kisumu, Mombasa, tuambie how the traffic is looking like there, and alternative routes as well. And today, a special, I'm going to give you information on how to track and catch an electric bus ride in Kenya. So stay tuned for that. Welcome to the best business and technology show on this side of the Sub-Saharan. My name is Richard OKENYE. I'll be the host all the way to the end of the show. Let's kick it off. All right, welcome back, and we are still here. It was a very short break. Guys who have been tuning in, Tracy Wahu anasema tuned in from Mombasa. Watu wapende hesabu, tupende hesabu tafadhali. It's from that conversation on countercy mathematics, who are trying to make math fun and enjoyable, not trying to make fun of math and making it enjoyable. Also, Wanjiru. So this is Shikoshiro. The show is awesome. Watching from Kitengela. Thank you for tuning in to the show on Twitter. I see Ashley Mwangangi. I see that there's also here Mumo Kimwele, who's also been interacting with us on the timeline on Twitter. And I'll be looking at also Facebook live stream. Remember, on Facebook, KUTV Kenya, and also on YouTube, KUTV Kenya Live. This time, I am going to be looking at the stories which are hitting the headlines on the papers this morning. If you have a copy of the Star, the People's Daily, the East African Standard, or is it the East African Review? Yes. Tell me how the headlines are looking like that. But with me is the Standard, the Daily Nation, and the Business Daily. I'll keep the business for last. I'll start with the Standard. It won last week's headline, so let's see if it does this time. On the front of the Standard, Sava politics, the big gamble for Raila. Opposition leader has stacked his political career on the latest negotiations with the government with a demand on opening the IEBC servers to authenticate who won the 2022 presidential election. Experts, however, say that even if the contents of the server show otherwise, there is no overturning of the results. This story is there on page 6 of the Standard, where you can get to see that already when opposition leader Raila Odinga presented or challenged former President Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election in 2017, his first prayer was for an order to open and scrutinize the electoral servers. They were answered, the servers were scrutinized, and these were used during the 2017 presidential election, and a report was filed there. Opening the servers was also a conversation in 2022. Observers are saying that this won't overturn the decision from 2022. However, it's important that they do so for improving the electoral process in the future. Get to read that and tell us what your thoughts are. If the servers should be opened, even as Raila Odinga calls for mass actions after the celebration of this year's Ramadan period. Page 6, that is the dedication to the story on Raila Odinga, the opposition leader. Server politics, the big gamble for Raila. The Daily Nation, the headline, MP's new bid to block high county taxes. So in terms of relevance, I think today I will have to vote the Daily Nation for the better headline of the day, the prioritizing of county taxes. A proposed law before the National Assembly is seeking to control runaway county taxes by requiring that the National Treasury oversees and blocks exorbitant levies that undermine cross-county trade as well as national economic policies. But the bill has already drawn mixed reaction from governors and senators. The story can be found on page 4 of the Daily Nation. If you grab yourself a copy, the physical copy is going for 60 shillings and the online digital copy should be at 10 to 20 shillings. And the MPs here are trying to block that, of course, proposed law that is there to devolved units, and that is going to impose taxes, issue waivers, and exemptions. There's a comment, of course, already there from the Prime CS, Musalia Mudavadi, on this proposed law, and this is going to sanction poor performance, according to them, to the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. While we're still on the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, I think I want to shift on to the Business Daily, where they've highlighted the newly created offices. At the bottom there, the headline on the Business Daily is NCBA and Equity CEO salaries. We've had this conversation a lot of times in the past years on Biashara Tuesday, looking at the immense amount of money that these people are paid. They have in hefty salaries and other commissions and incentives. But there at the bottom, you can see the newly created offices, starting with the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Wanasema wamesota, according to the Business Daily, and they've had to rely on other ministry for funding of day-to-day operations. So this here it says that the Prime Cabinet Secretary, that is Musalia Mudavadi, has had to rely on the office of the President for his day-to-day activities. And this is the same case for the office of the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who's also relying on the President for funding despite being offered a separate and independent allocation of millions of shillings. On the other end as well, the Inspector General says that the National Police Service still is relying on funding from the Ministry of Interior, even despite Dr. William Ruto making it autonomous and putting its budget under the Office of the Inspector General. And this is coming in the backdrop of civil servants who've not been paid for the past 3 months. You can read this story, page 2 of the Business Daily. There, squeezed the far right of the Business Daily, is betting firms who are now going to have to remit taxes on real time to KRA. As I mentioned earlier on, they need them to integrate their systems within the mobile money platform offered by Safaricom, which is M-Pesa. And this is going to allow KRA to be able to collect these taxes as bets are being made, and them as well ensuring that they are collecting. I was trying to get information from Mo Academy, MOE Academy, on Twitter. You can follow them for all financial information. I highly do recommend them. They're saying here that betting firms will be required to compute betting taxes after midnight every day and remit the same to the taxman by 7 a.m. the following morning. And this is via KRA's pay bill number. So tax saizi, ilipe pale na pay bill number. Why does the IMF want CBK to let the shilling depreciate? Apparently, this is going to help us to focus more and encourage local production and export-oriented investment. Is this the best way to go? Experts are yet to weigh in on this, but you can send us your feedback as well. To finish up on the Business Daily, I'll go back to that compensation conversation. The Equity Group CEO, James Mwangi, is here next to John Gashora of NCBA, and they're saying that they earned a combined 362 million last year on increased salary and bonuses. So if we split it, it shows that Mr. Mwangi earning jumped to 213 million in 12 months. So you can compute that and see how much he got in a month. Should be something above a million bob every day. He makes more than a million bob a day. And this is including 53 million in bonuses. And this time he made a little bit less because he missed out on incentives. So if he got those incentives, the bonus payout will have gotten a bit higher. But you can read this exciting story. I think every single year we do see this publication of the salaries of various CEOs of banks, especially who are the highest earning. KCB, Equity, ABSA, Standard Chartered. You can see that if you want to become a CEO of a bank, see your future salary and get excited about that. To close this up, you can read on the more stories which are there on the Business Daily. Maybe just to highlight on page 4, Land CAS is involved in gun drama of a family half an acre, and someone has been shot. On page 4, they're saying that CAS Ngujiri, that one person has been shot and another hit with a plank of wood during early morning confrontation over that half an acre. Read more about this story, some of those cartridges which have been collected on the scene yesterday, and what exactly happened in that confrontation. On page 2 of the Financial Standard, Safaricom, Crown have become the top Kenyan brands, and you can get to read why. There's a story that we highlighted last week with Jessica Motho on the newspaper review on this state importation of oil. A couple of oil marketers who are designated to import oil in shillings into the Republic, and this was going to ease the burden of the taxpayer at the pump. Kenyans are now waiting with bated breath to see if the arrangement with these Gulf states will be happening, even as the first of this consignment of fuel has arrived in the Republic, and hopefully this is going to be the kickstarting of this deal to deliver products on credit and free up the dollars. President William Ruto says that in his fresh promises, he says that in the next month or so, you will see the dollar exchange rate coming down in a very phenomenal way. In fact, in his estimate, he says that in the next couple of months, the exchange rate will come below 120 or maybe below 115. But the CBK is asking the government to allow the shilling to depreciate. And the president is saying that this might not be happening. The IMF is asking the CBK to allow the shilling to depreciate. The president is saying that this will not happen. The exchange rate will come down to 120. Given that the IMF does inform most of the decision in the Republic, this is going to be quite an interesting thing to follow up through. So do tune in to Biashara Tuesday for subsequent programs to know exactly how that is going, and also if we can expect to see an ease of the pain at the pump as this free consignment or duty-free consignment of oil arrives in the country. Closing it up with the quote at the back of the Business Daily, because there's no guest today, I'll be the one to read that. But get more information. The Daily Nation has a lot more on JKIA and jobless graduates who are having it hard to pay their HELB loans. There's more on football, and also the yesterday's results where Evans Chebet did win back-to-back the Boston Marathon, and the GOAT, the greatest of all time, that is Eliud Kipchoge, missed out on winning in this Boston Marathon, and finished at position 6. He did send out a tweet yesterday, and I was trying to maybe read his comment, read his statement. Here he says I live for the moments where I get to challenge the limits. It's never guaranteed. It's never easy. Today was a tough day for me. I pushed myself as hard as I could, but sometimes we must accept that today wasn't the day to push the barrier to greater height. I want to congratulate my competitors and thank everyone in Boston and from home for the incredible support, and I'm so humbled to receive. In sports, you win and you lose, and there's always tomorrow to set a new challenge. Excited to see what's ahead. Personally speaking, I'm excited that Eliud Kipchoge lost the race yesterday, because this is going to drive a new thirst for winning. So we're expecting more records, more world breaking records from Kipchoge, the man who ran against time last year and did actually win. So congratulations to him and all those Kenyans who did represent us there. I'm coming back to see your feedback, and also I think I'll read the quote at the back of the Business Daily after. Let me take a short break, a cup of water. I'll be back. All right, Donald asking, OKENYE, who dressed you? Dressed by OKENYE. So this is my handiwork. Thank you for tuning into the show and for that comment. I see here guys who've been tuning into the show since the morning. Asante sana for creating time for us. We are glad that you were able to tune in to Biashara Tuesday from 7 a.m. and up to now. We've had conversations, exciting, on climate action earlier, about a pageantry that is happening the 28th of April. Please check it out, Mr. and Miss Climate Kenya. It's the first of its kind in Kenya. You go there and check out how it happens. Dennis was here, the president of the Youth Green Society, and expressing his emotion and anger towards the postponement of the opening of City Park, which has been undergoing restoration, and also expressing his anger at the lack of political goodwill towards the conservation of public spaces and the environment in Kenya. Before that, we discussed the mathematics mentorship, which is happening. Of course, currently, Gideon is on his way to the Alliance High School to provide mentorship in matters of mathematics, but also to make sure that mathematics is fun and enjoyable. If you missed out on that convo, it will be there on YouTube. KUTV Kenya is where you always find us. Here, the quote at the back of the Business Daily today is from an American poet and activist, Amanda Gorman. I believe Amanda Gorman was the one who did perform at the swearing in of President Biden last year, if that is 2 years ago, if I'm not wrong. But this is what she says: "There's always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. There is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If we're only brave enough to be it." Popat is tuning in very last minute. Anasema nisitoke on air bila kumention. Thank you for tuning in, and he's watching us all the way from Ruiru, Kenya. This has been an exciting show for me. I hope for you as well. You can tell me on my personal handles. I'll check out throughout the week and interact with you at Richard_OKENYE. Continue tuning in to the rest of KUTV's broadcasting, the Primetime Bulletin tonight, and also Mizizi ya Habari later, and all the other shows before we come back here with KUTV Rise Today next week. Remember, on Mondays, you get in the morning the beautiful Current Blessing on Art and Culture Monday, and then I come here with business on Biashara Tuesday. Until then, if you want to have breakfast in bed, sleep in the kitchen. I'll see you.
Nililipa 60,000 show me tumia kula